Hello, this is Dan Gilbert again with Mission Nation Publishing, conducting another interview today with a missionary who has come not from, but to the United States. And as I always like to do when I conduct these interviews is to remind all of us that we are on a mission field. So if you ever hear about something where someone says, well, that could work on a mission field, say, well, great, that means it can work here. That can work on a mission field because this is a mission field. Today, very happy to be interviewing someone I just met over Zoom about 10 minutes ago. This is the Reverend Ramdat Saran. His country of origin, where he was born, is Guyana in South America. And if you're an old guy like me, you remember the social studies books way back when, that was British Guyana. So an English-speaking country in South America, north of Brazil there. He is currently missionary at Mount Calvary Lutheran Church, working with Pastor Robert Plain there. And we're going to find out more about what the Lord has been doing in Brother Ramdat's life and doing in his life and through his life as well. So Brother Ramdat, thank you for joining me and all of us today in this interview. And just to get started, tell us a little bit about your own personal walk of faith. Where did you come to know the Lord? Was that something that began when you were very young or came later? Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Well, thank you very much, Don Gilbert. It's a tremendous joy to speak what God has been doing in our lives. My name is Ramdat Saran, originally from Guyana, South America. We are the only English-speaking country on the continent. I was raised in a Hindu family. Actually, the name Ramdat means the servant of Ram, which is one of the deities of Hinduism that 1.3 billion people in India alone worship. Then the name of that God is Ram. And when I was born, my grandmother actually gave me that name. So I was vouched by the parents to be a Hindu priest. I was born out of wedlock in just after the Second World War in the 50s. At a time when the country was going through our own challenges under colonialism. My mother got pregnant at age 14 and they were getting ready to abort the child, who actually is me. But my grandmother took my mother in, who is our daughter, and said, no, let the child live. I want to thank God for that. That in itself was told to me before my grandmother died in 1983. I didn't know much of that, but they said they gave me over to the gods of Hinduism by the name of Ram. But at the age of 16, I heard the gospel. And I really want to thank God for that. I used to go with one of my aunts to the Church of the Nazarene when I was 7, 8, 9 years of age, because she came back from London with her husband. They were there after the Second World War. They were there working. He was working with the British government. And she came back to our community, actually hearing about Jesus. She herself was a Hindu, and she went to the Nazarene church to hear more about this man called Jesus. And she took all her children, 4 of them, with myself and my other sisters and small brother. But the gospel actually came in much more clarity when I moved into my mid-teens. And it was in a street meeting where the gospel was proclaimed by one of the native or the indigenous people of our country. And when I heard that what Jesus has done for me, I responded to the message of the gospel. I thank God 2 weeks after I got baptized by the pastor. And ever since then, I've been serving the Lord. And that would have been 1972. It was a Friday night, the 18th of August. I will never forget that. And that is when Jesus came into my life.
Yeah.
And ever since then, the Lord has been helping me to walk by faith.
Wonderful, wonderful story. Many of us were brought up in a Christian home from the start. My mother, for example, she could not remember a time when she didn't know Jesus. Myself, I did as a child. I fell away for a couple of years when I was a teen, and the Lord brought me back. And just wonderful to hear your story and rejoice with you that you know Jesus and you have forgiveness of sins and salvation. It's the best, isn't it? There's nothing better.
It is. My first Bible was given to me by the pastor of the church, and so I started reading the scriptures after experiencing such joy of forgiveness that I no longer go to the Hindu temple and bow down and worship the images and the gods of Hinduism. And after we got married, I actually was rejected by my family because everybody were Indians, Hindus, and they didn't want nothing to do with me. They said I got married to a Christian young lady. My mother and father never show up to my wedding. None of my cousins and family nobody. I alone. We walk into the altar and we got married at the altar, being joined together in holy matrimony. None of my family members were there. The Lord had given us 3 children. We waited 10 years before we got our first child. 3 gynecologists actually did all kind of tests in our country, all kind of biological tests to find out why the 2 of us cannot get children, and they came to conclusion, and these are different men from different situation, said no way can we get children. But thanks be to the Lord, after 10 years of marriage, after much prayer, we got to thank God it was the Lord who gave us 3 children. My son was born in 1984. It was the 9th of August, actually 5:30 that Thursday afternoon, when the Lord gave us him out of a cesarean process. And after he was born lifeless, medically dead, but lifeless according to the Russian doctor, rather the Cuban doctor that did the operation does not believe in God. He was from Cuba, and he did the operation on my wife and said, your child is medically dead. Do you need a funeral, or you want us to discard the body? That was shocking.
Yes.
It wasn't easy. My wife was under anesthetic at that time for a Thursday afternoon on the 9th of August. And I said, no way. We wait 10 years for this child, and the Lord God of heaven has given me the child. He said, he don't know but the Lord God. Then I knew he didn't know anything about God. Yes. And we prayed the entire night. I called on the church that I was going to and a neighboring church, and they prayed the entire night. The next day when I went back, the child had revived in the incubator. Today he's 38 plus years of age.
Glory to God. Wonderful, wonderful. Brother, how did you, so wonderful story of how you, the Holy Spirit brought you to faith, a wonderful testimony regarding your wife, your family. How did you come to be in public ministry? What was that like?
Well, as a young man growing up in the church in the first calendar year, I got very excited because of the conversion, what God has done in my life. And I always want to share the message with people everywhere, children like young people like myself, adults, men and women, whoever I meet, I will share the gospel. And that desire was put into my spirit by the Lord. Definitely had to be by. And my wife was very excited. And we started travel, move from village to village and travel around our country. Remember, for the first 10 years, we didn't have no children. So we were not pastors. We were not trained. They never went to theological school, but we started just sharing the gospel and sharing our testimony, sharing our experience. And that really, spring up a well in our spirit. And before I sat in a theological classroom in my country, I had already started preaching here, there, and everywhere, seeking every opportunity. At one time, I didn't feel I want to go to sit in classroom to teach, to receive information. I feel I had known much. I can able to. But after much consideration, it was in 1979. Then I really answered the call to go and sit in a classroom for 4 years in my country, where I had my missionary training, and I did not know that training would have been a foundation to my missionary life that I am experiencing today. I came to Cleveland about 8 to 9 years ago, and here we are. When I came to Cleveland, I went into a couple of the declining churches, the only black church in Cleveland, Ohio, rather in Ohio district, only black church. I pastored that church for 4 years. It was all black. Came here to this country, myself and family, we migrated. My mother, who had migrated in 89, sponsored us. We came here in 2001, 5 months before 9/11.
Good. And how is it then that you came to the United States?
I always had a desire to preach the gospel to the ends of the earth. Jerry Kishnick was the president of the LCMS. Yes. Out from St. Louis, and he had a tremendous vision. That is what drew me to become a Lutheran minister. I mean, through the process of being called cries in 2007, when I heard about the mission dynamics of LCMS planting new church plant, I got excited, because that is what drive me when I was a young convert, walking through the church and seeing what God is doing in our community. And I did some after much consideration. I said yes, and he said, yeah, there are 3 processes to go. Either you're going to sit in classroom for 9 years, or you do the EIIT program for 3 years, 15 courses, or you go and do an interview in St. Louis for 90 minutes. So I said, I believe the best thing for me to do is a 90 minutes program. Yeah. And he said, Ram, that's the most toughest piece of being an LCMS pastor, because you have to read the 21 books. The author of the books will be sitting in the room. The vice president of the Senate of 6,000 churches is going to be there. The district president of St. Louis is going to be there. It will be a tough journey. Yep. I said, well, I love challenges, so I'll take that on. So 2007, I went up to St. Louis. I believe it was the 17th of June, 2007, when I had the interview with 22 men, actually from assemblies, from Baptist, from Anglican, and here I am from Evangelical Church coming in for an interview. I was number 7. I'll never forget that. I was number 7 in the interview. And when David Benke was the one with the president of the Atlantic District, said, you need to go up and take your interview now. I said, okay, I'm ready to go. And I went up and had the interview. And 2 weeks after, actually, I got the documentation that I am received as an ordained minister of LCMS. And I thank God for that grace, because God gave me favor in that setting. Because I believe out of the 22, only 7 persons actually got ordained, and I was one of those 7.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. You said the Lord gave you favor. That reminds me of what Nehemiah prayed for. He said, Lord, give me favor with this man, with the king. And the Lord gave you favor with the colloquy committee. That's wonderful, Ram. Thank you for that story. Now, did you go then right away to Cleveland, to Mount Calvary?
No, I was in New York. I was in upstate New York. No, I was in New York under David Benke. He was our president at the time. And after 2002, I came through catechism with a Lutheran church that was there. It was dying. Trinity Lutheran Church is connected in New York. That church was getting ready to close 2002 with $300 and I believe $86,000. They would have sold the building, and the few believers that were there in the church, all were white Germans. No colored man or woman was in the church. And I did visit the church because it was next to where I was living in Schenectady, New York. And I went there for a function, and I met one of the the chairman of the congregation, and said, "We are glad to have you. Who are you?" And I said, "I'm a pastor." And he said, "Why you don't come in and start a mission congregation among us?" I said, "That's my language. I'll talk to me a little more on that." And they said they are getting ready to close the church with $386,000. They're going to give all the money to the district. And he started share with me, "No, we can do a mission work here and what have you." And the church had just a few believers, maybe about 15, 18 believers at the time, but they had some money in the quiver. And then while all of that was happening, myself and wife went through catechism class with the pastor that was there, getting ready to retire, because he was about 66 years at the time, and he got the feeling he has come to the end. And I said to him, "Why we don't start a mission congregation?" There is where my Lutheran life began, at a dying congregation. And my 3 children were not married. All 3 of them are married now with 7 grandchildren. They were in high school. And we start in a fellowship hall, myself, wife, and the 3 children. We start praying and asking God to help us with this mission congregation. Then the children went back to their school and the school had a basketball court on the second floor, and they brought their friends in. In less than 6 weeks, we had about 50 young people up in the basketball court. And I said, "Listen, if you guys are gonna come here to do basketball, we got to do a Bible study." And there is where that congregation, the mission congregation, actually took over the entire church, because when the pastor saw what was happening, he did endorse the mission congregation. We start in the fellowship hall, we grew beyond, we introduced drums, keyboard, guitar. This never happened in that church that celebrated that German. All they knew was organ music. For 7 months we had to remove the drums from the sanctuary because one of the deacons was very offended with the drums. We say this very respectfully, without any offense. We removed the drums every Sunday. We replaced it back, and what have you. And that went on for 7 months until after our first baptism that we had with the and they heard what God is doing, because they don't know what's going on. After they finished their service, they went home, and when the pastor reported to them and said, "This is what is happening here. God is working with us. We will not be closing the church in 2002. We're going to continue with Ram, and Ram going to be in charge of mission." And then they came, Bishop Benke came, and they commissioned me as the mission pastor and then that is where from the mission pastor, they asked me to go through the colloquy process. And in 2007, after 4+ years, I studied the book, and I believe it was the right time when Bishop Benke said, "Ram, the church need you to become an ordained pastor." The German pastor was still there. And he was mentoring me, as it were. And there is where I get to reach David Bourne, and all the other mission guys. I was traveling around the country, St. Louis, California, Texas, I forgot some other places, Florida. We went on mission trips with LCMS. David Benke took 22 of us in Florida to check out, to see how to do mission in some of the Pentecostal and evangelical church. We went to Dream Center to see. So they started to stretch us, because he is a very challenging mission, was a very challenging mission DP, district president. So he really was into mission himself, being a New York district president. So after we got ordained, after I got ordained in 2007, I was open for a call. We took a call to go to Rochester. And we were in a church with about 2,000 members. I was one of the pastors there. I was a mission ordained pastor with that congregation. I was doing work in the inner city in Rochester, the fifth a city in America in terms of abortion and drugs and alcoholism and what have you. So we went there and I spent some time there, and it's from there where I came to Cleveland. Somehow we got to know through phone call a mission pastor by the name of Jeff Johnson, who was pretty much involved in mission here in the Cleveland area. I spoke to him by phone, and he said, it's great. We have a church of about 300 members. We have four different congregations, African, mixed, colored congregation, and all white traditional German congregation, and they also have a mission outreach. They're meeting the homeless. So I said that is very exciting. I love to get involved in some. He said, yes, we would like to bring you in, and we would like to give you a call, a no salary call. No. So we were leaving New York because of the joy and the passion and the love for mission and ministry. We relocate. They said they will rent a house for us for 2 months, which they did. And after that, we will have to sustain ourselves, but no salary attached to the call. I said, yes, we are coming. We came down, I believe was the last weekend in July, 2012, I believe. It was 2012. So we moved down here and we start working with that church. What we have been doing, I've been ministering there and doing mission work there, and the black congregation, the only all black congregation in Cleveland, Ohio, didn't have a pastor. They had a fill-in pastor. People would go in there and speak and what have you. So I was assigned to preach there once a month. And I would leave our congregation, preach there, and go there for 11 o'clock service, and what have you. Then after about 6 months going there, the church decided to call me with a low salary call. So I got a part-time, not really, part-time call, but a full-time work kind of thing. So I was pastoring that church, and I pastored that church for 4 years. The church been there for, I believe, was 87 years. We celebrate our 87th year. It was started as a mission congregation out from a white church. The woman that was there 87 years prior, she was a servant in the pastor's house. And she was listening into the Bible study, I was told. And then one day she told the pastor, why you don't come and do a Bible study among our people, the black community? And the pastor did went. And it really came alive 87 years prior to I going there. And they bought building, they bought land, they built a church, and that church ended up producing a lot of missionaries that went out from that church. At one time, the congregation was over 500 plus black folks. But they had a lot of white pastors that passed through there. But I was the first also Caribbean man. In fact, I'm the minority among minority here in the Ohio district. I'm the only West Indian pastor, the only Indian from South America. So, but the Lord has been very good. And like I said, it all has to do with the favor of God. God brought me in among the white community. And the guys really respect me. I really thank God for that. I got a house for $300-400. Nice. And we refurbish them, and all of us end up owning houses. I recently sold my house for a couple $100,000 and pay off all our debts and this and all this. And we move in with my daughter to do missionary work, so I can travel around the world, traveling wherever God allows me. I went to Africa with Dr. Philip Giesler. I don't know if you know him. He took me up to Uganda and South Sudan just before the COVID. And so we have been doing a lot of missionary work. So I was preaching in 3 Lutheran church every Sunday. So presently now I am based at Mount Calvary doing mission work. We have about 85% of the school of 106 kids are from Nepal. They speak the Nepali language. So we were bringing the gospel to the Nepali congregation. In fact, our building service a Nepali congregation of about 300 Nepalis.
Wonderful.
From Nepal. So that is what is happening here with our lives here in Cleveland.
Very good. Wonderful. Thank you for what you're doing. I have just one more question, and would like you to reflect on this a little bit. This is not so much what you've done, but what you've learned from what the Lord has had you doing. I'm going to introduce it by quoting you, something you said a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Said it was you're talking about Lutheran congregation. He says that you said, "There is where my Lutheran life began, in a closing congregation." So here was a congregation that was coming to the end of its life as a congregation, and it gave new birth because of you and what happened to you there. And then from this closing congregation, you went out into the United States and the whole world, the ends of the earth, as you said. There are so many congregations, LCMS congregations, mostly just one racial makeup, mostly European, but they want to serve the people in their community who are of different ethnic groups, whether it's African American or Hispanic or Asian, whatever. What advice, or more than advice, what encouragement do you have for congregations who want to serve the people who live around them, but just don't know how to do it?
It's a very, very loaded question,
yes,
but
yes, it is.
I'll speak out of experience.
Yes, that's what I would like.
And like I said, it wasn't easy for us. In fact, in one of my experience in New York, we brought in our Caribbean culture, and I even had to tell very respectfully. Told one of the elders of one of the Lutheran churches in New York, I cannot be a German. I'm a Caribbean man. I clap my hands, I shake a little while the song, and I cannot stand up straight and sing a hymn, right. And what have you. Anyway, I believe that is one of the big challenge, the transition from where with the demographic changes around many of our cities, especially inner cities, because a lot of the Anglos moved to the suburb areas, and you would agree with me on that. Right. But out of experience, I would say this: the youth leader of our mission congregation, he's a musician. And he's from my country. He's from my country. He went through 3 years of the EIIT program.
Yes.
He got ordained, I believe, 2000. and I can't remember the exact year. But anyway, he spent 3 years doing the EIT program, and he got ordained while I was still there. Mm-hmm. He got ordained, I believe it was 2010 he got ordained. 2010, I got ordained 2007. So he spent the next 3 years with the Anglo pastor, and he mentored him into the 3-year process. Then he retired. So he took over the church, an Indian man like me, younger than me, but he took over the church. And today, that church has over 100 plus water baptized believers. That's a transition. It's a change of mindset. We cannot run our church like how we used to run it 60, 70 years ago. And I'm talking about just recent, 40, 50, 60 years ago, with a German mindset. Right. Because we don't have Germans coming on a ship anymore. Right. We don't have the kids of the German community staying in that. They're moving on to university, college, and what have you. And a lot of aging, dying congregation left with our aged men and women. And they are a rich resource for mission. I see that as a very rich resource for mission, but they also need to change their mindset because the community has changed around them. Now we got people coming in. The Arabs are around us, the Africans, the Lebanese, the Palestinians, everybody, the Guatemalans. I'm talking about Cleveland here, the Guatemalans, the men and women from Mexico, all around, the Guyanese, the West Indian. So what will we do? We can't give them the German organ anymore. They come with the drums, they come with the tambourine, they come with the guitar, they come with the keyboard. So that's one of the cultural shifts. If the church is gonna stay alive wherever we are, whether in Illinois, whether in Carolinas, whether in New York, whether in Florida, in Cleveland, in Tennessee, we gotta understand and study the demographic, the change around us wherever we are, and that's very, very important for mission. And what have you. Right now at Mount Calvary, we have what I would say not a full traditional service. We still do hymns. We love hymns and we maintain it, but we got a lot of contemporary, 2-3 contemporary songs in our worship. We got keyboard, we got drums. My grandson is 10 years and he plays the drums. Right. My son plays the keyboard. My daughter, and we got a worship team now, or a praise team, whatever you want to call it. And we brought that. And it's not easy to transition, but it's challenging. But when we understand where we are going for the next 5 years, 10 years, and a long term, that would be very important. So answering your question, yes. How can we help the declining congregation? I don't believe it would be good for you to put right now, when you look at the reality of it, if the community is changing around you, you cannot just put an Anglo pastor there. It would be good for you to put a mixed pastor, whether a Mexican, a Latino pastor, or an Asian, or an African, to balance the community, and that would be able to stimulate the spirit of welcoming, because a lot of colored people like me don't want to go to some of the white churches, vice versa. Right? Oh, it's a white pastor, a white congregation. At a black church, I don't want to go to a black church, I'm white. And you find that transition is very, very difficult. That's a challenge we have today. And when you look at the church in the book of Acts, Acts chapter 13, it was a very diverse congregation. It had Jews, it had Gentile, it had Africans, you had people that were there. So, Rufus was an African from North Africa. They were in the leadership, they were in the apostolic team, as it were. Paul had a very diverse team when he was planting church in a Jewish community. I was just telling one of the pastors the other day, even we got to compromise. He even encouraged Timothy to circumcise. Mm-hmm. Here he is, a Greek guy, with Jewish background, you got to circumcise because we want to reach the Jewish community.
Yeah, brother, I truly believe that you've said it as many others have too. Those from one culture, and that culture doesn't live around their church anymore. There has to be, you said a change of mind, absolutely. And I know you mean this too.
Yeah, change your heart.
A change of heart, for sure. And it's very encouraging what you said. So thank you for that. And we're coming to the end of our time here.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you also, brother, for answering the Lord's call and coming to the United States. We need you. The church where Jan and I are members in St. Louis now, Messiah in St. Louis, we have a young pastor who is of a European German background, and our pastor who's been there longer is an immigrant from Ghana in
Africa.
And it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. And that's a reflection of our community and our congregation. But that to understand that cultures are different, God's word does not change. Everything else does. Everyone who's listening, remember, where do we live? We live on a mission field, and anything that can work on a mission field, it can work. It can work right here. Again, Brother Ram, thank you so much. God bless you and your family. Very, very happy to have been with you today.